It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon in a quiet suburban neighborhood, but things took an unexpected turn. A woman, often quick to make assumptions, spotted her new neighbor, a black man, unloading boxes from his car. Suspicious, she decided something didn't feel right. Without hesitation, she grabbed her phone and dialed 911, claiming there was someone suspicious in the area. Little did she know, the man she was accusing wasn't just any neighbor. He was the FBI director. What happened next left the entire neighborhood stunned and sparked a conversation about prejudice, assumptions, and the importance of knowing the full story. In today's video, we'll break down what led to this tense encounter, how the situation unfolded, and the surprising way it all ended. Stick around to find out what happens when snap judgments meet an unexpected twist. You won't want to miss this. The call had been made, and the woman, known in the neighborhood for her watchful eye and quick judgments, felt confident she had done the right thing. As she stood by her window, peering through the blinds, she watched the man go about his business, completely unaware of the commotion brewing just a few streets away. Meanwhile, the man, calm and composed, continued moving boxes into his new home, pausing occasionally to greet a few curious neighbors who came by to welcome him. What they didn't know, and what the woman behind the phone hadn't considered, was that this man wasn't just any new resident. He was someone with years of experience handling situations far more intense than a suspicious glance from across the street. As police officers began arriving at the scene, the neighborhood buzzed with curiosity. Whispers of "what's going on?" spread, but nobody could have anticipated what came next. As the officers stepped out of their vehicles, the woman eagerly rushed to meet them, pointing toward the house. She described the man in vague terms, emphasizing that he didn't look like he belonged, and insisting that she'd seen him acting suspicious. The officers, maintaining their professionalism, nodded and approached the home. Inside, the man heard the knock at the door and calmly walked over to answer it. As he opened the door, he was greeted by two officers, their expressions cautious but polite. They introduced themselves and explained the situation, while the woman stood at a distance, watching with crossed arms and an air of self-satisfaction. The man didn't flinch. Instead, he invited the officers inside, offering them a chance to see his identification. As they stepped into the house, their eyes widened at the wall of plaques, awards, and photos showcasing his career. The atmosphere in the room began to shift. As the officers scanned the room, the weight of their realization grew heavier. Framed certificates from prestigious institutions lined the walls, alongside photographs of the man with prominent leaders, including presidents. One officer exchanged a nervous glance with his partner before asking for the man's name. When he replied, their expressions shifted. This wasn't just any neighbor. Standing before them was the FBI director himself. Outside, the woman watched from her porch, her arms still crossed, growing impatient. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she assumed the officers were confirming her suspicions. When one officer stepped back outside to speak with her, she prepared herself to be praised for her vigilance. Instead, his tone was serious. "Ma'am," he said, "this man is not a threat. In fact, he's someone you should respect." The color drained from her face as she struggled to process his words. Inside, the man remained calm, but his piercing gaze hinted at a deeper disappointment. The woman stood frozen, the officer's words echoing in her mind. She stammered, trying to justify her actions. "But he was acting strange, and I didn't recognize him," she said defensively, glancing back toward the house. The officer sighed, clearly uneasy about the situation, but maintaining a professional demeanor. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "it's important to think before jumping to conclusions." As the tension outside simmered, another figure emerged from a car parked down the street. It was the man's wife, returning home with groceries. She paused, noticing the police presence and the commotion on the lawn. Concern flashed across her face as she approached. Before anyone could explain, the woman's expression shifted again, her voice rising. "There's two of them," she blurted out, loud enough for everyone to hear. The man, now standing in the doorway, clenched his jaw. What started as a misunderstanding was spiraling into something much bigger. The man's wife walked up calmly, assessing the scene. With a polite but firm tone, she asked the officers, "Is everything all right?" One officer began to explain, but before he could finish, the woman on the porch interrupted, her frustration boiling over. "I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. How was I supposed to know who he is?" The wife's calm demeanor didn't waver. "Protect the neighborhood. From my husband moving boxes into our home." Her words were direct, cutting through the tension like a blade. She turned to the officers. "Thank you for coming out, but I think we all know this situation didn't require your time." The officers nodded, their earlier professionalism now mixed with unease. As they prepared to leave, the man finally spoke. His voice was measured but carried weight. "Next time, ask questions before making assumptions," he said, looking directly at the woman. Just as it seemed the situation was winding down, the wife added one final twist. "Oh, and by the way," she said with a slight smile, "I'm the Assistant Attorney General." The woman's face turned pale as the gravity of her actions fully sank in. The couple calmly walked back into their home, leaving the neighborhood and its newest lesson in stunned silence. As the couple closed their door, the neighborhood slowly returned to its usual calm, but the incident left an undeniable mark. The woman who had called the police retreated inside, her earlier confidence now replaced with a deep sense of embarrassment. For the first time, she questioned her quick assumptions and the harm they could cause. Word spread quickly among neighbors, and many reflected on the incident, realizing the importance of community over suspicion. Some even reached out to the new family, offering warm welcomes and apologies for the rocky start. The man and his wife, despite everything, chose to focus on the positive, using the experience to remind others about the dangers of prejudice. In the end, the situation served as a powerful reminder to pause, ask questions, and give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes, the most important lesson comes from the most unexpected situations.